Welcome to another edition of the OK Preps Extra podcast. I'm Patrick Prince, joined as always by our high school sports editor, Barry Lewis. And Barry, we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. We sort of capped another week of all-world teams with all-state basketball. You and I are going to mostly talk about all-world basketball. So let's just jump in. Why don't we quickly kind of go through the five finalists for Boys Player of the Year. Let's start with Ty Frierson from Memorial.
All right, Ty Frierson. He was so consistent all season long. He is the only returnee from last year's all-world first team. But difference is this year he is a Player of the Year finalist, as you alluded to. Whenever Memorial in clutch situations, not that there were many clutch situations for Memorial because they blew out everybody pretty much, but he's just a model of consistency, very efficient, and just had a tremendous season.
We'll kind of get into more specific questions later, but let's just kind of keep running down the finalists. Kaden Frye, a senior at Owasso.
He lifted Owasso to a share of the Frontier Conference title. Owasso lost a lot of key players from last year's team, including Aaron Potter. And so if Kaden Frye didn't step up and have a huge season in the very competitive Frontier Conference, Owasso could have easily had a losing record instead of share the conference title with Booker T. Washington. So Kaden Frye kept a really outstanding 4-year high school career, the last 3 of those at Owasso, with taking his game to new heights this year.
I really like what Booker T coach Eli Brown said, Barry, about our next finalist, Aaron Potter, when he said he changed our he changed our team and transformed our culture. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty high remarks. What can you say about Mr. Potter?
I think Eli Brown said it all pretty much. I mean, and he took his game to a higher level because at Owasso, he was a good player, but I had no idea that he was the great player that he showed he is this year.
What did he do different, Barry?
It was just his leadership. Again, he was consistent. I didn't know he was going to be as good a scorer as he was, and he had to be, and it was just beautiful to see how he blended in with Kam Parker, who was on our all-state team as well as Aaron, because if they didn't mesh so smoothly, Booker T wouldn't have had the season they had. I mean, so it was just a combination of factors. Not only was Aaron Potter great on the court, but he fit in so well there, and as Coach Brown said, transformed them and changed the culture. Because remember, Booker T won 2 games off the previous season, and They go from that to 24-3. I mean, it is incredible to flip a team's record like that.
And of course, you rewarded that turnaround with giving Eli Brown the Coach of the Year honor. So,
yes.
Yeah, just amazing turnaround for Booker T. So, any update, Barry, on Ty Frierson and Aaron Potter? Are they still uncommitted? Any word where they might land?
Well, they're sort of stuck like so many players are, including 4 of the 5 finalists, Player of the Year finalists. They're waiting to see what opens up. The transfer portal and the extra year of COVID eligibility have really just jammed things up for so many. Kaden Frye last week made his decision and signed with Rogers State, but he's the only one of the 5 finalists who has made that decision. So it is signed, and I think that's a great addition for Rogers State. I think it's a great fit. So I can see Caden having a great career at Rogers State, much like Brewster Peacock from Verdigris did when he signed with them 5 or 6 years ago. I think Caden can be that type of player at Rogers State. I know Rogers State really wanted him because I saw Justin Barkley, their coach, at so many Owasso games this year, and his tenacity paid off.
The final of the five finalists, Victory Christian's Joshua Udoumoh. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you got it right.
I always ask you that. I don't want to pronounce his name wrong. And he's from 4A. He's the smallest class represented on the first team. What can you tell us about him?
He a lot was expected of Victory this year, and Victory also, you have to remember, they lost two of their top three return players who were supposed to return to Union, because they had two impact players move over to Union after last season's state tournament team. So Joshua just took his game to new heights as well. He was Mr. Clutch. Whenever they needed a basket, he seemed to come through, or a defensive play. And he really focused extra on basketball during the off season, and you could see how it paid off. He wasn't going to play football, didn't play football the first half of the season before they needed him, and he helped the football team shift into another gear. So he had an outstanding second half of the football season, carried that over to basketball, and took them to the state championship game. And they really needed his leadership going through the losers bracket in the area tournament. So and we don't want to forget our fifth player of the year. I shouldn't say number 5, but another player of the year finalist, Braden Hubbard of Memorial. Yep. Memorial had 2. That's right. Braden was someone who Coach Bobby Allison said really had a renewed, he was transformed himself both on and off the court with his diet, took his game to starting with the last off season, and just really became an outstanding player. Instead of just a good player, which he was last year, he just took his, I feel like I'm repeating myself on all of these players, but for the most part, except for Ty Frierson, who said was a repeater from last year from the first team, I think the other 4 players, well, they were already good previously. They just took their games to a higher level. And of course, this was an incredible year for talent in the Tulsa area.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question, yes. Barry. Parker Friedrichsen from Bixby almost averaged 30 points a game, but didn't make the first team. He's a second team member. What went into that decision?
Well, and the second team, I thought when the all-world teams, the first team selections for all world, which was our 5 player of the year finalists, because some years we have 3 player of the year finalists like the previous year, but this year I thought we really needed to have 5. And so I thought more people locally would be happier, or there'd be less controversy over the all-state picks, my all-state picks first team, which I have 15 on, as opposed to the all-world picks where you have a first 5, second 5, third 5, because the second team, as you can tell by the fact that I've all got them on the all-state first team, they're really, really good. Any of the 5 of them, I would say any of the 5 of them with the year they had this year could have been on the first team last year. They were that good. And you talked about Parker Friedrichsen of Bixby averaging nearly 30 points a game, an OSU commit. Mm-hmm. But you can't forget David Castillo. And it's really hard, going back to Parker, it's pretty hard to evaluate him because Bixby really didn't have much on the team besides Parker. They didn't have a very good season, win loss wise, although thanks to Parker, they were competitive most of the time. But then David Castillo, can't forget him. He's one of the top recruits in the nation. And he averaged 24, 25 points a game. Bartlesville had its best season in almost a decade. And so you're wondering, how can I leave him off the top 5? And I can see people asking that. How can you leave either Parker Friedrichsen with his stats or David Castillo with who he is off the top 5? But yet, so I was glad it worked out this way, that I could give him the all-state status. But that just shows you the 5 players I chose, how good they are. And we haven't even talked about Kam Parker. Well, we have talked about him briefly in regards to Aaron Potter, but Kam Parker he's going to be playing college basketball. And he had his season was almost up there, pretty much up there with Aaron Potter. I mean, there'd be nights where one would score 29, the other would score 27, and they would take turns being the MVP of a tournament. And so it's really, as good as Aaron Potter is, it's really hard to differentiate him from Kam Parker, other than the fact that you can see what Aaron did for the program by going there and joining Kam Parker. And you have to also credit Kam Parker a lot, again, both of them, for the chemistry they had and how that translated into just a super season. But as good as Aaron Potter is, Kam Parker was right up there. And then you have the Jenks pair, Ben Everett and Chase Martin. It's very hard to leave them off the top five. They're so good. You had a situation where Chase made the Coaches Association's All-State team, but yet he was second team in the Frontier Conference, because Ben was Jenks's representative on the first team. I mean, they were both so good, and it's like hard to say who is the better player, Ben or Chase. They both are great, and so that's why it was great that, again, the way it worked out, that I could give them both first team All-State status, which is, as I referenced in my column in Sunday's paper when I explained the All-State selections, in a typical year, I would have 6 of the 15 players who are All-State first team. Since we've gone to this current format 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 would be from our all-world coverage zone. But this year I've got 10. And I didn't expect that when I started figuring this out. But the more I looked at all the candidates, it's like, yeah, these 10 are really deserving. I mean, some years I've got just 5 from the Tulsa Metro in the outstanding individual talent from the rest of the state. They pretty well dominate our All-State team. But while it didn't translate into championships at the state tournament, this was an incredible year for talent in the Tulsa area. The West teams obviously had a lot of outstanding teams, but when you compared each player, compared them to the talent in the East, it was really hard to take, with some exceptions, obviously, because I do have a few players from the West on the All-State team, like J.B. Seat from Edmond Memorial, Dylan Warlick, then Dayton Forsythe, and then Brandon Garrison from Bell City. And then from McAllister, closer to home, Adante Holloman. That's why I gave the edge this year. It felt really weird to have so many players and I don't want to make, just like in football, we've talked about this before, Patrick, I don't want to make the Tulsa World All-State team just a repeat of the All-World team. I'd like to have different players and honor the whole state. But it was just hard to leave the more I looked at it. And again, I didn't plan it this way. All 10 players from the Tulsa, the all-world coverage zone, it's like there was no one from outside the area I thought that I could rate above them. So I went with it.
Fair enough. So let's drop down to the third team for a second and talk about a kid from Glencoe. And I used to work in Stillwater, and we covered Glencoe a little bit. So that school's familiar to me, maybe not as familiar to some of our viewers or listeners, but tell us about Jakin. I hope I'm saying that right. Weeden?
Yes, the coach. And
Class B Glenpool, what can you tell us?
Yeah, that's a rarity that I've got a Class B school.
I said Glenpool by mistake. Glencoe. Sorry.
Yeah, Glencoe. Yeah. Rare that we would have anyone from a Class B school in our top 15 all world, but he had an outstanding season. And when I was trying to determine those last spots in the top 15, wanted to recognize not only did he have a solid season, it really could have been like going for that last spot. Couldn't have gone wrong with about 10 other people either that I was considering for that last spot, but really the last 2 spots. But I went with Whedon because in large part because they won a state title. I like to reward team success, and he was a big part of that, huge part of it. He hits the winning free throws with a few seconds left in the championship game for their 1-point win over Roth, and that just capped an outstanding season he had. So I thought he would be a very deserving person to reward with third team recognition.
Yeah.
I mean, because I could name there's any 10 players basically were going for what I would consider the last two spots on the third team. And I also, Jacob Skirkles from Collinsville, he got the edge to reward their team success as well.
Was there one decision, Barry, that was like you've been saying, it was an outstanding year for talent in our area. Was one decision any harder than the other?
Yes, and I'm because I don't want to tip off anything for the All World Awards. But the fifth spot on the fifth Player of the Year finalist was about one of the toughest I've ever had.
Okay.
So yeah, it was that was really tough. As I said, the previous year we only had 3 Player of the Year finalists because I thought that's all that would be deserving of that. But this year we could have seriously had about 10 because that's how many we have on the All-State team. And so the 5th Player of the Year selection, that was really difficult.
So All-State basketball, boys and girls, of course, published in the Sunday paper that capped off a week of all-world honors. And help me out, Barry, if I leave anybody out. We started last week, early in the week, with boys and girls wrestling. The first time we've honored a girls wrestling team of the year. Very glad we did that for this year. We did boys and girls swimming, all-world boys and girls basketball. Who am I leaving out?
Yeah. 2 days of swimming, 2 days of wrestling, 2 days of all world basketball, and then we had the all-state basketball. So that's the 7 days.
So
and we talk about the girls wrestling. That again, we listened to the readers' requests because we didn't. You said this was the first, as you said, this was the first year we had all world wrestling, and we didn't have it the previous year when they just became an official OSSA championship sport. And we didn't have it the previous year because we didn't feel the numbers really justified having it because there's still not a whole lot of girls wrestling participants. But we got a lot of feedback on that decision not to have girls wrestling as part of the All World Awards in 2021. And so we listened to the readers. And we reevaluated, and that's why we added girls wrestling this year, because there's still not a lot of participants when you compare that to the other sports, but the sport is growing, and we felt, yes, the readers are right. So we added it.
Yeah,
so
and I'm glad we did. It didn't feel quite right last year, and we didn't do it, and it felt right this year. So like you said, we listened and we added it, and it was we should have added it. That's what we should have done, and we did. So it all worked out.
So we do listen. Course, if you have ideas, we do listen.
We do listen. Absolutely. Absolutely. So of course, the winners of all the sports will be announced August 2nd at our 6th annual All World Awards banquet. And Rod Thompson will be our keynote speaker. The award show is presented by Bill Knight, and of course, we appreciate all his support. And what am I leaving out, Barry? It's at the Renaissance Hotel. Tickets are now available. You can go to allworldawards.com and order your tickets. We've been kind of teasing this for several weeks in our video, Barry. Now we can actually provide those details. So go to allworldawards.com and get your tickets. And it's always a great event. And it just, I love the way we honor high school accomplishments. It's really great.
And we want readers to vote on some awards.
That's right. Yeah. Why don't you tell us about that, Barry?
Vote now. Nominations are being taken for Fans of the Year, as well as Mascot of the Year, Cheer squad of the year. What am I leaving out, Patrick?
Dance squad.
What was that?
Dance squad.
Oh, dance squad, absolutely. And
mascot.
Mascot, yes. So we added new awards this year because all of those, except for the fans of the year, are new awards. Mm-hmm. So we encourage our readers to nominate and vote in those categories. And we also encourage all athletic directors and coaches who have not done so yet to nominate deserving student athletes and other specialty awards, including Inspirational Athlete of the Year, Sport Comeback of the Year, as well as Scholar Athletes of the Year.
All right. That's a lot of stuff. Very appreciate all the knowledge and all the work that you and Kelly Hines and Ben Johnson and John Tranchina. Am I leaving anybody out?
You got them all.
Yeah, all the work you guys have done over the weeks and months, not only watching these games, but talking to coaches, talking to players, communicating with readers to produce these teams. It's a ton of work. Good job to all you guys. Great stuff. And we'll catch up next week.
Sounds good, Patrick. Thanks.
All right.